Greetings, Earthling. This is Mr. Smock here, resident Vulcan at Outpost Productions, Malaysia. We have here to discuss another review of, this time, a Netflix movie titled Death Note. Together with me is Mr. Raymond, the expert in Japanese anime English adaptations, which he can speak of much better than myself. No such form of this entertainment exists on Vulcan, so it's a new cultural experience for me. So, Mr. Raymond, would you like to share what is Death Note?
Okay, so basically, as you may see over here, that I have this, a notebook which is written as a Death Note. So it's actually, one of my greatest notebook I ever had. So yeah. So technically, Death Note. Okay, let's go in the history of the manga anime first. Death Note came out since 2003, which is like 14 years ago. And it's definitely one, even though it's 14 years old, it's still considerably one of the most popular manga anime throughout the whole world. I wouldn't even say Japan, because everywhere in the whole world has, if you're a comic book reader or even a manga reader, you would definitely read Death Note as well. So mostly, what is this Death Note? What is so intriguing, and also at the same time, makes it so interesting? It's because it's a very different on a normal, your usual animes, where each of the people have their own superpowers, or they have, they need to battle with an old ancient monster. This is nothing like that. Death Note is mostly of battle of wits. It's mostly a psychological mind game, cat and mouse mind game in a way.
Perhaps you could explain the basic premise of what is the Death Note and how does it work?
Okay, so Death Note is actually is a book by the Shinigami. It's by the Shinigami, also known as a Death God. In English, it's known as a Death God, but in Japanese, it's a Shinigami. So technically, it's like if you notice that how people die, the Death God kills the people or take their life away by writing in a book, which is the Death Note instead. So whoever's name written there in a book, as long as a person knows the person's name, full name, and also how they look like, and when they are writing the name inside the book, they will die within 40 seconds. If there was no, if there's no cause of death, within 40 seconds they will die of heart attack. However, if you want to specify how they die, you can just write specifically how they get killed, or something like that.
And there's this supernatural entity associated with the book.
Yes, it's the Death God, because the books belong to Death Gods. That's how they take the human lives away. Not your typical Grim Reaper, come with the big scythe and all. No, this is different.
So the Death God related to this particular publication of the Death Note is?
Okay, so this Death Note involves the story of we go into the character and the main story. This one is still the Japanese version first. So it's about Raito Yagami, who is considered as a genius high school student who one day found this Death Note lying on the ground. So he was wondering what is this book about. When he picked up the book, when he opened up the book is considered to be empty, but however there are rules stated in that, which I mentioned to you just now. So out of curiosity, so he was like, okay, might as well just, it could be, that no one has better things to do, like a prank, in a way. So one day when he was watching a live news, there was a kidnapper, so the news was showing the person's face and the kidnapper's name. He wrote down the person's name, and true enough, after 40 seconds, the kidnapper died within a heart attack. He thought it could be a coincidence at first because it was just a one-time thing. When he tried to use the book second time, then he realized, and the person died the second time, then he realized the book is a real deal. So that book belongs to a Death God, a Shinigami named by Ryuk.
So to be clear, what you just described is the anime
Manga
a
anime.
manga and anime adaptation,
Yes.
which is virtually the same,
Mm-hmm.
and has also been adapted to live action as a Japanese movie.
Yes.
A few Japanese movies
Yes.
along that basic premise.
Mm-hmm.
So here we are now talking about the live action adaptation done by Netflix for the English-speaking audience.
The US audience, Western audience.
So who are our characters and how do they relate to the source material?
Okay, so Raito Yagami is in the Western version. His name is Light Turner. Okay, in the anime there is Misa Amane Misa, who is considered the second character. She in the English version she is known as Misa Sutton. Very different, very different. Soichiro Yagami, who is Raito's father in the anime, he's named as James Turner. Technically, the same characteristics because he's also a policeman in the Western adaptation. So you have Ryuk, the death god, which is not much difference between the anime and the Western version.
Voiced by William Dafoe.
The only famous one there. Rest of the actors and actresses, I'm sorry, I just don't know them well enough.
In my study of superhero geek culture, he sounds very much like his alter ego as the Green Goblin
Yes.
in the Spider-Man movies, but now as Death God.
Yes. So he has that awesome laughter over there. So yeah, and also you have L, the famous detective. However, the most drastic change between L in the Western version is he's black. So that was a little bit for the fans. They were like, huh? Yeah, in a way. So these are the main people involved in the American adaptation.
This adaptation by Netflix is also a single standalone movie of approximately 90 minutes, which I understand is much shorter than the runtime of the Japanese anime or manga, which has continues for multiple episodes and multiple seasons.
Yes.
Yet, this adaptation could also be seen as the first chapter in a whole series of movies.
It could. It depends on the feedback, but so far the feedback hasn't been pleasant. But however, from what news articles, they may come up with a sequel, but depends on Netflix. Yeah.
Let's talk about your impression of this Death Note movie.
Okay. All right. Death Note. Okay. About the movie, it's different. It's different compared to the anime and manga. The anime and manga, it's much more struck of how to say brilliance, and also it's that good cat and mouse game, and also psychology also involved as well. Whereas the American adaptation, it has the same premise in a way. It had the cat and mouse premise. However, it's more they change it to of a teenager found the Death Note, and then he was killing all the criminals. However, the police went after him, and he's like, oh god, the police are after me. I have to go and I have cover my tracks and make sure I don't get into trouble. In a way, in the anime one, it's totally different. It's like Raito is like he challenged L to like come and get me if you can. American version, totally different in a way.
That could also be attributed that they had to condense this story within a single movie of 90 minutes.
Correct, true. So yeah.
What is your impression of our main protagonist, like Turner?
A lot of people, they were mentioning that he's much more less intelligent compared to his anime counterpart, and also he's not up to par, which I understand. Why. At first, I thought that maybe these people, the hardcore fans, was just being very harsh. But after that, when I watched it, I was like, okay, I understand why they were being harsh to the American adaptation version. It's because that I am having a book that I can kill people. I wouldn't want to talk about that in public, but he did. He actually took the book out and he was reading during his gym time.
Not the most logical way of being a
Discreet.
mastermind behind
Exactly.
these mysterious deaths.
Exactly. So it's in a way, but also at the same time, there are certain things that people were being harsh to him. It's like, especially when the part that he met with Ryuk. In the anime, Raito was a little bit more calm because he knows that the Death Note is a supernatural book. He knows it's a supernatural book and it can kill people, but as long as you write the name. However, in the American adaptation, you see him is like freaking out and then also, oh my god! So everybody says he's such a wuss in a way. But then again, let me ask you back. He has not been using the Death Note, he just found a book, and then suddenly out of nowhere you see an 8-foot tall demon and he was like wrecking all the the bookshelf and all. Tell me, would you be afraid or not? So
Perhaps at the city where they are based, they see a lot less cosplay.
True. Yeah. But then again, in the way is that he's more of a typical American teenager who's given a power which, he thought he could control it, but in the end it became a little bit too overwhelming in a way. He had a more guilt presence compared to the anime version.
There are hints that Light Turner does shine through with some semblance of brilliance in the way of fashioning the deaths and also in the plot that he has to write and find his way out of it. But I think that doesn't communicate through very well compared to L, who is presented as the sort of boy genius, almost to the sense of, very logical Vulcan mindsets, except with a lack of discipline in uncontrollable emotions and this tendency for sugary diet.
Technically, they took some parts of the anime L, they translated into the the American adaptation version. The way he sits, the way he eats sugary, it's the same like the anime version. However, the personality is definitely a lot different. Anime L, it's more calm, much more stoic. You can see him is much more emotionless, but no matter how stressful the situation is, he's very cool-headed. Whereas in American L, he's much, I don't know, the way I watch him, I feel that he's a little bit more mentally unstable. He's a genius, but a more mentally unstable kind of genius in a way, the way I look at it.
Now with this L, he also belongs to some organization which is somewhat mysterious, of brilliant investigative tacticians.
In a way, I'm not exactly sure because they added this kind of they've been all these orphans, they were kidnapped. Was they kidnapped? I think they were kidnapped, and then they brought it to the orphan, and then they were trained to be brilliant detectives when they grow up.
I apologize, that's a small spoiler.
Yeah.
But if we are to continue on that spoiler, this is not a story element in the source material.
The source material is that they weren't kidnapped exactly. They were orphans, but they were in the orphanage where they were brought up, and each of the orphanage they is like gifted people. Some of the orphans they are they have like good intuition, and also they are gifted in a way. But it's they drastically change it a lot in the American version.
So another character which of some importance in this American adaptation is that L has a handler by the name of Watari.
Yes.
This is a middle-aged Japanese gentleman which attends to most of his every needs.
Technically, Watari is very different from the anime. Anime Watari, he's more like an elderly gentleman. He's not a frontline kind of person. He doesn't appear frontline at all. Even though he appears as a frontline, he makes sure that he's covered his face and all. Because you need to understand that they are a secret detective organization of detectives. So for the American version, they kind of miss that logical part that they expose their faces just like that. Even though yes, L is wearing how to say American L is wearing like a face mask, but anime L, he won't even bother coming out to do like a how to say
on-site investigation.
On-site investigation. He will mostly go through behind the camera of a computer, of his laptop. So technically, it's a very huge difference. And Watari is not a real name. Watari is definitely not how to say it's a real name. They are code names. So they changed that also quite a lot as well, which leads to the story to be a little bit.
I had the opportunity to watch this with a number of followers or fans of the source anime and manga. And another response that they strongly reacted against was the gruesome nature of deaths portrayed in this movie.
Okay, technically what Smock is trying to say that it's more of the death is more of like a Final Destination. Like if you watch the Final Destination series, the death was like over the top. Head splatting out left and right. It's like throwing a tomato through the wall. Splatness is right over there. So I think they just want to bump it up because they want to get the R rated. So that is the reason why they just want to show that how terrifying the Death Note is, in a way.
So with a specification of death by decapitation, literally you see heads explode. Plus a few other gory fests.
Yes.
Gore fests. So to summarize, without going into major spoilers, how would you rate this American adaptation of Death Note?
Due to because that they missed out the main point of because Death Note is mostly about what is exactly justice, what is considered as a right justice or a bad justice in a way. So they missed out that main point. So it's not to say it's bad, it's not as bad as what a lot of people has been saying. It's not good either. Definitely it's not good at all. But however, it's not bad until it's like Dragon Ball Evolution garbage level bad. It's still watchable, but it's something you just watch it if you're just really, really bored. So honestly speaking, my rating I would give it is a fair 5.9 out of 10. Read the manga first if you want. But if you're not the reading kind of person, yeah, go ahead, go with the anime lah. It's no big deal also as well. But you will not get a much more detailed version than the manga itself.
From the perspective of someone or from another planet who has not been exposed to the hype and fandom of Death Note, I found this movie to be very much wrapped around teenage angst, which seems to be a recurring theme among American movies.
Exactly.
I then question, is the target audience for this live adaptation of Netflix Death Note for young adults who have very much been looking for a way stepping into this franchise without going back into the backstory of the anime and the manga. So it is a stepping stone. In a way, it's a reboot or different universe.
It's an adaptation. It's not a remake. It's not a remake. It's not a reboot. It's an adaptation.
In a way, but it's also like Star Trek 2009 and creating the Kelvin timeline.
In a way.
Many fans, as I understand, are not particularly happy with the result, but that could be backed by too much expectations. So for a person with no expectations, I found the movie somewhat fascinating. This live adaptation on Death Note is now streaming on Netflix. You may catch it anytime at your convenience. That being the case, I do not believe that the runtime is that important, and perhaps it may have been better that they retained many of possible scenes that may have explained the plot loopholes. especially with regards to the reasoning or the coincidences or seeming coincidences of the plots relating to how the deaths were transcribed into this publication. This is Mr. Smock, together with
Raymond here.
Signing off. If you like what we rant about, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we shall be back soon with other geeky pop culture reviews and recons around Malaysia. Signing off, live long and maybe not so long if you find your name in this book.
Be good. That's all I'll just say. Just be very, very good.